Viewer discretion is advised. Dickie ventured into the woods, as he was a participant in a game of truth or dare with his hiker buddies. He opted for a dare, and they dared him to go into the woods and bring back something scary, like a werewolf or ghosts, they added, sarcastically. And Dickie had always yearned for a chance to show off his bravado, mostly to impress Jenny, one of the hikers. The woods got denser as Dickie ventured deeper. His flashlight, although bright, illuminated nothing ahead of him. And sure enough, he tripped. He felt something was grabbing his ankle. He immediately grabbed the light, and chills ran down his spine as the flashlight shone on a set of bones, bony white human hands poking out of the ground. Horrified, he scrambled himself up and tried to run away, but then an idea struck him. I didn't bump into the skeleton for nothing. I'll take it back as proof of my bravery and prove them wrong. And with that, he started to dig. The bones were being revealed more and more as he dug. Soon, the skeleton was fully dug out. It was intact, and none of the bones were disintegrated. Without any delay, Dickie grabbed both hands of the skeleton and carried it on his back. After walking a few steps, he felt something grabbing his throat. And just when he tried to understand what was going on, it was too late. The skeleton that he had piggybacked was not dead. He tried to free himself from its strong clutches, but he couldn't. The skeleton's strength was stronger than that of Dickie's, and its squeeze on his throat was getting tighter by the seconds. Eventually, Dickie ceased to struggle and suffocated to his death. He fell lifelessly, and the skeleton began to tear an opening on his body. It pulled out the bones, then squeezed itself into Dickie's skin and flesh. Back at the campsite, Dickie's buddies were chatting gleefully around the campfire. They saw the return of Dickie, and one of the hikers, Ripley, rose up. "Took you long enough, huh? I see you didn't bring anything back with you." But Dickie, or what he was now, only stared at them blankly. Hello everybody, I'm TheRubber. Today we bring you a SCP Foundation Euclid Class Object SCP-3114. SCP-3114, also known as Wouldn't It Be Chilly, is an animate human skeleton. Although it has no articulation or connective tissue, its individual bones remain intact as they would in a human body. Research showed that individual bones can be pulled out of position, but quickly return to their correct position when there is no longer an external force acting on them. Though it is made of similar minerals as human bone, it is stronger and requires more than 3 times as much force to break, and the anomalous feature extends to the broken bone mending on its own. Regarding its ability to move, there is no current explanation. However, the observed range of motion in its joints is similar to a healthy adult female's. It is much stronger than a human and can lift at least 250 kilograms with one arm alone. Its maximum observed foot speed is 60 kilometers an hour. 3114 has an apparent field of view similar to a human's and reacts to visual stimuli. It also responds to touch. However, it does not react to sound or smell. After recovering 3114, it has proven to be extremely aggressive and would immediately attempt to attack any time it sees a human or other biological humanoid entities. When it sees a potential target, 3114 will approach the target with the quickest route it can, only avoiding obstacles it cannot push through. Once it reaches the target, it will latch on with its hands around the throat and begin squeezing it, asphyxiating the target. Once the target stops moving, it will begin to tear the body open grotesquely and pull out its bones over the course of several hours. Once the whole skeleton is removed, it will attempt to pull the remaining flesh over itself. Once the body is no longer in one large piece, it loses interest in it. A series of conducted experiments showed varied results of 3114's reaction to different entities. For the first 2 experiments, the results came out the same. Both the D-Class personnel and a female gorilla were placed in the vicinity of 3114. Both subjects tried to escape, and even though the gorilla was able to break 3114's left ulna, none of them survived and was asphyxiated. Their flesh was torn open and bones removed. However, upon discovering that the victim's body was not intact, 3114 placed the subject remains in a corner along with several sticks and a cardboard box on top of the subject, as though burying him. 3114 seemed quite compassionate and considerate to the other two subjects, where one was a border collie and the other was a human skeleton model. For the dog, 3114 approached and examined the subject cautiously with its fingers and was surprised when the dog licked it. It played with the dog for 2 hours and was visibly excited in its presence. It wrestled with the dog without harming it and threw sticks for it. The subject was then removed from the enclosure without incident. 3114 stood at the exit for several hours after the subject's removal and struck the walls repeatedly, as if 3114 was missing its presence. For the skeleton model, 3114 approached it immediately but did not attack. Instead, it examined the subject by prodding it. When this elicited no response, it ran its hand along the top of the subject's head. Since the subject was a skeleton itself and no skin was there to tear, it carried it back to its enclosure and cradled it for several hours. It then put the subject in the same position it takes during sleep periods. A different approach was made by 3114 when a male human cadaver 1 hour after death was placed in the enclosure. 3114 proceeded with its process and was able to keep the body intact while it placed itself inside. It walked around its enclosure for an hour while wearing the subject. The only exception in this experiment was another D-class personnel that was placed in the enclosure. When 3114 approached, he attempted to escape. 3114 grabbed him, but only gently. It continued to try interacting with him, taking his hand and placing it on its face, trying to mimic his movements, and embracing him. After 3 hours, the D-class was removed safely from the enclosure. Lastly, when no target is present, 3114 is fairly docile. It explores its enclosure but does not attempt to escape. When the lights are turned out for the night, it lays down and becomes motionless. Though it resembles sleep, it is still capable of responding to visual stimuli. As for its motives for wearing the skins of its victims, researchers think of it as a way of coping with certain longings. When Dickie, or rather 3114 in Dickie's skin, moved closer to the group leader Tom noticed something was off in Dickie's demeanors. His movements were stiff, his mouth agape, and what happened to his eyes? But he brushed it off as him being tired from his little adventure in the woods. It ignored Ripley and walked past him to settle down around the campfire, next to Jenny. She asked if he had brought anything scary back to show them, but she got no response in return. 3114 only stared blankly into the fire. They continued their merriments around the fire, but as time went on, they noticed the atmosphere was off. Dickie, the usual chatterbox in the group, had remained silent ever since his return from the woods. Tom whispered to Dickie, "Hey man, you alright? You're awfully quiet." "What the?" He found a gruesome tear in the nape of Dickie's skin. It appeared that it ran all the way down. He pulled Ripley aside and whispered, "Hey, something's not right with Dickie." "Yeah, I figured. He's so damn quiet ever since he came back. What's wrong with him?" They both looked at their friend, who was just sitting and staring into the fire. Jenny was starting to feel uneasy. "There's a scar or something behind his neck. Think we should ask him?" Without saying anything, Ripley quickly moved behind it and pulled up Dickie's shirt, revealing a tear that ran from the neck to waist. A white set of skeleton could be seen within Dickie's pink flesh. It was bared for everyone around to see. This isn't Dickie!" 3114 stood up abruptly, and it tore Dickie's skin further. It got loose and fell off 3114, revealing a skeleton figure stained in Dickie's blood. Horrified, the hikers ran, but unfortunately for Jenny, she tripped and twisted her ankle. 3114 moved towards her. She screamed for help, but her friends did not come back as 3114 proceeded to repeat what it did to Dickie on Jenny. Hours later, 3114, now in Jenny's skin, sat around the campfire, basking in its warmth in the companies of Jenny's skeleton. Many researchers observed 3114's attempt to wear the skin of its victim as a way to cope with the longing of skin and company that had been undergoing for an unknown period of time. After all, doesn't it get chilly sometimes for skeletons too? Recently, I purchased some trail cams to watch the nocturnal wildlife for fun, as well as to see if there were any predators in the area that might want to snack on the chickens in our farm. Anyway, I set up the cameras on some trees near this small pond, or bog, or whatever it was. Simple enough. The first few hours of the footage went by quickly as expected. Saw some deer meandering for a bit, a couple of coyotes, and a juvenile bear. As I lazily watched the footage roll by, I noticed a raccoon waddling its way over next to that pond thing. It leaned in and sniffed. I chuckled as I watched it poke at the water with its tiny paws. Very cute. However, my smile was wiped instantly when the little guy suddenly started slamming its head down into the water repeatedly. I clutched the sides of my laptop and watched in horror. The raccoon then jumped into the murky water. As it thrashed around violently, chunks of flesh slid off its body, exposing the bones underneath before slowly sinking into the depths. I looked at my screen, stupefied, and paused the recording. A part of me knew that something even worse was going to happen. I pressed play and saw, get this, raccoon skeleton clawing its way out of the water as though it was still alive. It looked around, saw another raccoon, and immediately attacked it. Poor thing was ripped apart in seconds. Bony Boy then rolled its body over the still warm organs and flesh. And by some ungodly miracle, the flesh actually stuck to its skeleton. Then, it just waddled away happily into the woods, organs dangling about and all. I closed my laptop and I set it aside. The world needed to see this, I figured. So I posted the video online. Hours after it went up, it got taken down suddenly. All traces of it gone. All discussions about the video scrubbed, as if everything never happened. Next day, a few men in suits approached my doorstep. A man in a lab coat stepped through. "Greetings, I'm Dr. Ricardo. I understand that you've made a strange discovery lately. We need you to come with us for some questioning. Don't worry, this won't take long at all." Hello everybody, I'm TheRubber. Today we bring you SCP Foundation Euclid Class Object SCP-3106. SCP-3106, also known as A Flesh Removing Bog, is a small bog located in a classified area of continental USA. It is approximately 26 feet long and 6 feet wide. Its depth, however, has been measured to reach 22 miles minimum. The actual depth is unknown due to equipment failure when going beyond the 22-mile mark. 3106's anomalous properties manifests when any creature belonging to the Animalia kingdom touches its waters. Immediately upon contact, the animal's mind will succumb to a cognitohazard that compels it to forcefully drown itself. If the animal is immune to drowning, say a fish, it will instead suffer complete organ failure and die instantly. After death, all the flesh and organs will decompose, then absorbed by 3106 through unknown means. The skeletal structure, however, will remain unharmed. The now reanimated skeletal creature will drag itself out of 3106 and behave exactly how it did when it was alive. It can breathe, vocalize, and even move around despite lacking the necessary organs or tissues. These instances are classified as SCP-3106-1. If the victim does not possess any bone tissue, it will simply be absorbed by 3106. 3106-1 instances will seek out and viciously attack any living creature, animals, and humans alike. Though this is not without purpose. Their goal is to strip off all the insides of their prey and roll over the removed organs and flesh. Then, via anomalous means, the flesh will attach to their skeletons and begin functioning normally, even ruptured organs. When there is flesh covering the entirety of 3106-1, they will cease all hostile behavior and move on. These bits of flesh will stick on to 3106-1 for around 2 months before peeling off. As of the writing of this report, 30 known civilians and 3 Foundation personnel have been killed this way. A series of experiments led by Dr. Ricardo were conducted to test the effects of 3106 on different animals. Most noticeably, one test involved dropping a dead mink into 3106, with a live raccoon present nearby. As expected, the mink's flesh was stripped from its body and became a 3106-1 instance. Upon surfacing, the reanimated mink skeleton attached the raccoon and tore off its flesh. However, instead of attaching the raccoon's flesh onto itself, it attacked nearby Foundation personnel. The entity was promptly shot down. Following this test, dead animals placed into 3106 were redesignated SCP-3106-2 as they behaved differently. In another test, a D-class numbered D8009 was submerged into 3106. Again, his skeleton crawled out of the bog. However, unlike other instances of 3106-1, he did not display heightened aggression. The instance was then designated as SCP-3106-A and immediately taken to Dr. Ricardo. The security personnel on duty were supplied with ground beef to offer 3106-A as a means of suppressing hostile behavior. The interview is as follows. Greetings, 3106-A. How's it feel to be a skeleton that can talk? Yeah, it's freaking weird. Also, can we stick with D8009? I'd like to think that I'm still human. You took my name away and gave me a number. It's dehumanizing enough already, so I'd rather not be called something else. Sure, D8009. Anyway, let's get on with the program now, shall we? Can you elaborate on what it feels like to be you? It's like I'm naked. Super cold, too. I mean, I can't feel anything with my hands, bones, but I can feel the coldness against my bones. I see. So then, did you see anything while inside 3106? What was it like? 3106-A remained silent as he tried to recall the experience. He was noticeably agitated. It hurt. A lot. All of my flesh just burned off fast as hell. As for what I saw, I don't want to talk about it. So there is something. Please answer the question, D8009. How about you jump into the water and see for yourself? Please answer the question. 3106-A paced around nervously, then stopped. Actually, you know what, Doc? I'm trying real hard to be calm right now, but all that meat on you, it's tempting. Dr. Ricardo nodded. He signaled security to give 3106-A some ground beef. Delighted, he covered himself with the meat. God, it feels super good to breathe again. Thanks, Doc. Feeling refreshed enough to answer my question? Sure, I feel warm. Putting flesh on my bones keeps the cold away. Makes me feel normal again. It's like I'm alive again. As for what I saw in the water, that, cognito something you talk about, it entered my mind. I don't know if it was the bog, someone, or something, but it kinda spoke to me. Said it was hungry. Hungry? Yeah, it ate me up but let my bones go free. It didn't want me dead, it just wanted to eat. I don't know how I'm still alive, but here I am. The freakiest part is that it actually thanked me for my flesh. It thinks and feels, but I don't know what it is. Interesting. Would you like to re-enter 3106 to help us learn more? I had a feeling you were gonna ask me that. You guys will just crush my bones to dust if I said no, right? I appreciate your cooperation. Prior to the next underwater exploration of 3106, several cameras and audio recording devices were drilled into 3106-A's ribcage. So, how's it feel to enter 3106 again? Strange. It doesn't hurt now. Feels like I'm just in some regular old water. Chunks of ground beef could be seen detaching from 3106-A's body. He was instructed to proceed further down. He turned on his body lamp and swam. Embedded in the walls of 3106 were bits of clothing and shoes, scaring 316-A. Jesus, why are these clothes here? It appears that you weren't its first human subject. After a minute or two, the narrow tunnel of water opened up into a huge underwater cavern. 3106-A paused for a bit, then muttered that he felt like he was in 3106's stomach. Dr. Ricardo told him to continue descending. Large chunks of beef were spotted settling down near the bowl-like surface at the bottom. I can't see anything else. Hey Doc, you seeing this? The ground beef? No, I mean the shoes. He swam closer to a sidewall. where a pair of small shoes slowly came into view. They're so small, too. I don't like this. Can I leave? Slowly pan the camera around the cave to make sure we have everything on film. I'll let you know when you can leave. As he swam around, more articles of clothing were found. A minute later, 3106-A came upon a large tube. Now go in the tube. No, I mean, that's just too much. Seriously, you can just kill me when I get back up there. I am not going in that tube. Look, 3106 is not digesting you, nor are you being dragged by any current. And so far, you haven't complained about needing to breathe, so you will be able to swim back through. Proceed. Damn it. Fine, I'll go. After calming down, 3106-A swam down the tube in silence. Soon, he reached a section where the tube was covered in odd bumps. He suddenly stopped. What's wrong? Why have you stopped? Hold on. I can hear him. You can hear SCP-3106? Shush for a second, Doc. I'm gonna try talking to him. Tell me what it says. Who are you? In his head, a voice responded aloud, saying that it doesn't know, only that it was hungry, and that it felt cold near the surface and hot near its bottom. 3106-A proceeded to ask why it doesn't consume bones. He says that he doesn't want to kill the things that feed him, so he lets the bones go free and find new flesh. He also says that he has no idea what they'll be like after they leave. Finally, 3106-A asked if 3106 was a child. Again, it replied that it didn't know. Alright, that's enough, D8009. You may surface. Before 3106-A swam off, he asked, "Do you ever get lonely?" For a moment, there was only silence. Well, what did it say? I'll come back and talk to you. Following the exploration, the Foundation placed 3106-A in confinement with no plans for termination. However, considerations for further interviews with SCP-3106 using 3106-A has been denied. Every time he saw the small death lurking behind the shoulders of a man, he would sprinkle a drop towards him, and the first would flee, cursing and spitting. Hello everybody, I'm TheRubber. Today we bring you SCP Foundation Keter Class Object SCP-1440. SCP-1440, also known as the Old Man from Nowhere, is a man of unknown ethnicity and age. Though the subject's appearance is that of an octogenarian, it has not shown any signs of aging in the 50 years when its existence first came to the attention of the Foundation. SCP-1440's anomalous nature becomes apparent once it comes into contact with a human civilization, dwelling, or man-made object and settles there for a period of a few days. Prolonged exposure of any man-made object or person will cause increasingly destructive events to occur in 1440's vicinity until the destruction or death of the human stimuli. The only exceptions to the destruction are 1440 itself and his belongings, clothes, a sack made of unidentified material, a pack of worn playing cards, and a small glass cup. 1440 is very much aware of his destructive property and has thus vowed to avoid human populations as much as possible to prevent the spread of unintentional doom. Besides, 1440 is not actively hostile and will not resist attempts to be contained, though all such attempts have failed. Additionally, such attempts have led to a considerable loss of personnel and resources due to the aforementioned anomalous properties. During the fourth attempt to contain 1440 in Area 142, personnel began complaining about severe headaches and nausea. Over the next 2 days, 3 of the 4 on-site water purification filters broke down. Area 142's hangar collapsed, which caused the deaths of multiple airmen, and a doctor suffered a complete collapse of both kidneys and both lungs simultaneously. Over the containment's door, 1440 said, "It would be best if you let me go, for your own good. The first brother is already here. The 3 brothers are all cruel, all vengeful, all capable of holding a grudge for a long time. They are the cause of my misfortune, and therefore the cause of yours. And now, the second brother joins the first. Time is running short. Release me, or I cannot vouch for your safety. It might already be too late. The third is crueler than both his brothers, for he knows his appearance is the only thing that will set me free. But he never appears. I have spent time untold searching for him, trying to return his prize and those I won from his brothers, but to no avail. It is too late now. Doom is never far behind the second. Before you perish, allow me to give you a word of advice. Should you choose to challenge death to a game of cards for your life, there is one thing you must never do: win. At that moment, the on-site nuclear device stored in Area 142 detonated. Area 142 was destroyed, and all on-site personnel were killed, but 1440 suffered no apparent harm. The old man woke, and his failures flooded his mind once more. The destruction of the Foundation base was just another drop in an ocean of guilt. The desert he found himself in was a lonely, empty place, and for that he was glad. Out here, he could do little harm. As the soft desert sand crunched beneath his feet, he remembered that thrice-accursed game of cards that led to all of this, to the three follies that sealed his fate. First came the game, a game he should have never challenged them. But he was young and full of pride and had much to lose. He was a man in his prime when he lost his life in a meaningless war and found himself in the brothers' dark halls. Around him, his fellow soldiers walked silently towards the distant light, not even glancing at the three gaunt figures that showed them the way. But not him. He thought the others were fools. They were weaklings to accept their demise. Thus, in his vanity, he challenged his guides and refused to go forward until he was given the chance to fight. He got his chance, and he won. He won too much. Second came his greed. He took every hand, broke every gambit, and stole life from death's grasp with guile and skill. The brothers were displeased, but they accepted their defeat and showed him the door back to the world of the living. As he stood at the exit, he suddenly thought to himself, why stop now? Why settle for life when he could have glory, power, immortality? He turned and sat back at the table, and he won again, and again, and again. 3 prizes he won from them: the cup, the cards, and the sack. They were the brothers' prized possessions, and they offered him much if he would only return them: wealth and luck and health and glory. But he wanted to humiliate them, to make death grovel before him. So he took the prizes and left the brothers seething in rage. Third came the waste. The prizes were items of immense power, for they could keep the brothers at bay. The first cup held the elixir of life, and a drop of it would banish him, saving even the sickest of men from his grasp. Every time he saw the small death lurking behind the shoulders of a man, he would sprinkle a drop towards him, and the first would flee, cursing and spitting. A drop seemed like such a small thing, and the cup held so much water, so he used it carelessly. He banished the first from those too old or frail to keep on living, and from those the first rightfully owned. Eventually, the cup ran dry. When his wife began wasting away from the consuming illness, he had no water left for her. The first sneered as he took her away. The second prize was the cards. With the cards, he holds the power of the great death at bay. When war was brewing, when man turned against his brother, he was there to challenge the second and turn the tides of fire and steel. But like the waters of life, the cards of fate were wasted. They became more worn with every passing use. Eventually, the second refused to heed their call. He watched the world plummet into wars greater than he could ever imagine, watched millions die for nothing in the mud. The second laughed when he took them away. The prize of the third was the greatest. The sack of the all-death could hold anything within it. It could contain even the greatest catastrophes. It could stop even the direst forces from ever releasing their fury upon the earth. With the sack, he curbed the fury of storms, drowned fires that threatened to consume entire cities, and held creatures so unnatural and fell it was clear that their origin was not of this world. However, he used the sack as foolishly as he used the other items. The sack still held one last use, could hold one last being. In this search for the third, he saw the forces of darkness grow even stronger. He saw brave men and women like those of the Foundation risk their lives in order to contain them. Yet he would not spare the last use of his sack. It was all he had left, his final hope. He knew the only way he could force the third to release him from his endless torment was to capture him in the sack, and thus force him and his brothers to let him die. The All-Death never appeared though, not even to mock him. When the forces of the unknown claimed a victim, only silence greeted them. Once the prizes ran out, the true horror of his fate became apparent. The brothers feared him no longer and did not forgive his vanity, his wastefulness, or his lording over death. They wanted him to suffer, and death was far too good for him. Instead, he brought death upon everyone else. He was forced to seek the third forever and to watch humanity crumble in his wake. His curse, like his follies, was triple: never to die, always to seek, always to destroy. Remember to check out my new animation channel, TheRubber Talks, where I share my life story, thoughts, and opinions. Just click on the link in the description to enter the Rubber's world. Before we end this video, we are proud to present these incredibly sweet pieces of fan art. A big thank you to all of you. You can now send us your fan art, and we will be more than happy to show off your best art piece in our next video. Check out our description below on how to submit. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Which SCP do you want to see in the next video and why it is interesting? Let us know in the comment below. We will draw your story and share it with the world. Don't forget to click like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell. Please share it to your friends if you like this video. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.